What's up, good people? Welcome back to another episode of Undrafted Views. We're here. We talk sports from the sidelines. And today we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Clippers and what we've seen so far since the NBA season has started. Let's get into it.
So the Los Angeles Clippers are currently 4-2 in the Western Conference and have slid down to the second spot. I'm wondering if the Clippers are really a team that can turn it on and off to win games, because we've seen them come out from the start and put their foot on their opponent's neck. And then we've also seen them kind of lose interest as the game goes on and allow them to, basically lose it in the end. What do you think about that?
No, actually, I don't think they can turn it on and off. And that's the problem with their style of play. They are very temperamental. So if the team is doing very well from the start and they really enjoy what they're doing during the game, then I believe they can win the game. But the moment something happens in the game and all of a sudden they lose interest, which usually happens in the third quarter after they come back from halftime. If they don't come back from halftime with the same spirit that they may have had in the first half, it's over for them. And that temperamental play, inconsistent excitement about the game and will be their detriment again when they make it to the playoffs. That's what
Okay, so let's unpack the third quarter, and their trend essentially. Now, obviously, they have a new coach this year in Ty Lue, but the lack of aggression and interest was also present on last year's squad too. So now I'm wondering, was the coach really the problem to begin with? Is it something internal that the Clippers need to address? Is it Kawhi? Is it Paul George? They no longer have Trez. Is it Lou? What's going on? What do you think is really the problem when they come back from halftime, which should be the point where they're really focused?
I think it has a lot to do with the style of play from Kawhi. And I'm not saying that Kawhi is not a great player, but what I've noticed is that Kawhi plays slow. So if the game is fast, and the basketball games now are the speed of the games are pretty fast. But what I've noticed with just this season, and I'm quite sure it may have happened last season, but what has stood out to me this season is that when Kawhi gets the ball, he slows the game down. And the game has to now play on his speed. So I think it's the inconsistency in speed that perhaps causes the lulls that the Clippers experience throughout the game that impacts them from getting back on track. This is just an observation. I'm not saying it's fact, but what I see is that he is a slow type of player.
You know what? And coming from the San Antonio Spurs, who also played that kind of sluggish type basketball, it's no surprise that he's brought it here too, to Los Angeles as well. So,
and I'm quite sure it showed up in Toronto, but perhaps the complementary players in Toronto were able to pick back up. I mean, you have the great tenacity and Kyle Lowry and, the other players, so they can keep the momentum going. Unfortunately, there's nobody on the Clippers today that can keep the momentum going. So if Kawhi is going to be their measure stick on how they are to perform in the game, and he subsequently slows the game down, then that has a negative impact on your Paul George. That may have a negative impact on Pat Bev. And then please, when Lou Williams comes in, it depends on what he's going to give you. So I don't know if that's a fact. We will see how it plays out as the season progresses. But this is something that I'm going to be looking for when I am watching the Clippers moving forward on how Kawhi sets the tone for the game, which if he sets the tone, especially when they come back from halftime, he may not be the best person to do that. They need to perhaps give the tone setting after halftime to someone else. So then the game and the Clippers can keep the momentum going, which will help them win the game. That's something to look forward to.
Okay. Now, I mean, in terms of energy and effort, I can't think of anybody better than Pat Bev. He's their starting point guard. He averaged 8 points a game, going to give you about 3 rebounds and 8 assists. So he can move the ball. He can set up the offense and get it going. Now, I mean, why not him? Can Pat Bev set the tone? to start the game after halftime?
Maybe, but does the team follow him? Do the team follow him?
They still don't have a leader, in my opinion.
That's my point. That is what I'm saying. So yes, Pat Bev can be a tone setter. Yes, I agree that he can do all those things, but will they follow him? And I think for me, that's again the missing link to the Clippers' success long term is that they don't have that one person. They need it badly. They need it because it complements the style of play that Kawhi Leonard has. And Paul George technically should be that counterpart. But I don't know if he has the fortitude to be able to handle that himself, right? So they need someone else, and they haven't filled that particular gap in their style of play yet.
Yeah, I think PG and Kawhi are mirror images in terms of personality, and productivity. They're both, really great players. Paul George, I think he's playing really well. He's had a couple of bad games, but he's going to get you points. He's going to get you assists and rebounds, averaging 22 points a game, 6 rebounds and 6 assists, and only 7 touches throughout the game. So he's pretty efficient right now.
Yeah. I agree. So we'll see how the season continues to progress. But something about that, if they don't figure out how to maintain momentum throughout the game, they're not going to get past the first round.
Okay.
Not this year.
Now, Serge Ibaka, I think he's playing a crucial role.
Yes.
Good. Thank goodness for Serge, because I think without Serge right now, the Clippers would be very average. And right now, I think they're doing really well. Only lost 2 games out of 6. Without Serge, I think Kawhi would still be in his own little cocoon.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think Serge is a great addition. I believe Serge brings out the personality of Kawhi. Because the moment he was out of those, he didn't play those 2 games. That first game, Kawhi wasn't there. They got spanked.
Terrible. But Paul George said it wasn't a big deal. I totally disagree with him. He should be upset. He should be, shooting extra shots after the game, getting everybody together on the text thread. No, it is a big deal to get blown out by 51 points against the Dallas Mavericks, who you might see later on down the line in the playoffs.
You know what? And that's the point. Every time recently that there has been a disappointing game or season, Paul George is like, it's not a big deal. We really weren't planning on winning. This was our first year. It wasn't a big deal that we got blown out. What makes Paul George mad?
See?
In a competitive way. What is that trigger for him? Because I want him to find it. Because you're correct. You don't want to get blown out. And the moment you get blown out, stop passing it off as, it wasn't a big deal. It is always a big deal. It's a big deal now, and it'll be a bigger deal when it happens again. And if these are the things that Ty Lue is not going to fix while they are trying to build this championship team, then they're going to be looking embarrassed again. So I don't know. I just want Paul George to stop being so passive with the things that don't go well.
Yeah, get angry, get upset. You should be embarrassed.
Right? Yeah. I'm not saying you have to blow up in front of the camera because you do that, and media will sure enough make you a soundbite. But I want to be able to see it even when you do your press conference. I just want to see it. I just want to see, we bombed that, and this is what we did. Just own it. It wasn't a big deal. Okay, it's not a big deal. It's still early. Oh, it's not a big deal. It's in the middle of the season. Oh, it's not a big deal, although we are out and can't get to the Western Conference Finals again.
Yeah. Okay. So Nicolas Batum, currently he's a part of the starting lineup. I have not seen a lot of productivity from him. He's had probably 1 game to start the season, 1 good game, I should say, to start the season. He's averaging about 7 points a game, 6 rebounds and 3 assists. He's going to get you some defensive rebounds. But other than that, I haven't seen much.
I think that he is okay. He's a marginal player for me, right? And I believe that the Clippers need Morris to get back on the court. The reason why I'm saying that, one thing I don't think that Marcus Morris brings is the defensive prowess that Batum brings, right? From that perspective, I will see Batum reach up and get a rebound. He's going to do that, right? He's going to pass. He's going to give the ball. He's going to get the rebound and get the ball to somebody else. He ain't going to get the rebound and shoot, but he will make sure that somebody else can at least shoot the ball, right? However, what's missing is Marcus Morris' point productivity, because he can at least get you 16, right? Yeah. So that can be a cover up of the deficit, especially when Lou Williams brings 7 points to the game. So for me, we need Marcus Morris to bring point production back to the game, right? Defense, you can still bring Batum off the bench, and that's fine. And he can still, do what he does today. But it's time. When is Marcus coming back?
Hopefully soon, because they're going to need him. The games are going to get tougher as the season goes on.
And this is the thing. One of the things that the Clippers said was an issue for them is that they never had a chance to play all together, right? Last season. Well, guess what? If Marcus Morris doesn't play with whatever starting lineup Ty Lue has in store, then they'll be back in the finals with not having to have played collectively with him again.
Just another excuse.
That is my point. So how do we eliminate the excuses? So hopefully he'll come back, and then they'll be able to play together multiple games to really get them comfortable, chemistry, continuity, all the buzzwords that they said last season. And they'll be able to perform better in the playoffs, because really it's about the playoffs. But in order for you to get to the playoffs, you got to make sure you win games in the regular season. So I'm going to need for you to win games in the regular season, and I'm going to need Marcus Morris to come back from a point production standpoint.
Okay. Now, when Kawhi was injured, they brought in Kennard off the bench to kind of assist. But, when in the Dallas game, he only scored 7 points. And then against the Timberwolves, a game that they actually won after being blown out by Dallas, I think he played 28 minutes, which were Kawhi's minutes, went 6 from 9 from the field, hit 3 of his 4 3-pointers, and scored about 15 points. That's good. Now, that's solid. As those aren't Kawhi numbers, but it'll do. Yeah.
It will do. I finally saw in that game was against the Timberwolves, right? I finally saw glimpses of what the buzz has been about regarding Luke Kennard, because I hadn't seen it prior to the Timberwolves game. I was like, what is the hype? Somebody please show me a tape. Send it to me. Matter of fact, drop down the link in our comments. I just need to see it, right? So when he played in Kawhi's place against the Timberwolves, I said, oh, he needs to play more minutes. Maybe that's what it is. But when I look at his overall stats, he wasn't doing much when he was with the Pistons. So why did he come? I still don't get it. And hopefully it will reveal itself as the season progresses. There was a glimpse of something in the Timberwolves, but I don't know if he can sustain that.
So right now, I think the Clippers are, above average. They're doing extremely well right now, but I still worry about how they start in close games and if they can keep the energy and focus up. So that's what I'm going to be looking for as the season goes on.
Likewise. And as I watch the games, and if they can even be up, at the top of the fourth quarter. And I'm still like, well, we'll see.
Yeah, I know.
My trust in the Clippers being able to close out a game is still unsure. It just is. And so until they can prove that to me, I'm going to always be doubtful that they will be able to maintain momentum and close out a game.
Yep. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. I don't think it really boils down to the coach at all.
No, it's the players. It's the players and their lack of having someone that's going to consistently set a momentum for the team that's going to get them to close out the games. You cannot follow Kawhi. He is not the one to follow, although he is the leading scorer on the team. He's a great player, but he's not your momentum setter.
No.
Okay. And they need a solid floor general. I don't know what else to say. Again.
Yep. And that's it. Well,